Hi, I'm Eric Poulin.
And I'm Robin Poulin.
We're the co-founders of Calendar Budget, and welcome to the Calendar Budget podcast.
I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like. I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like.
Okay, here we are back at the board, as they say. Ready to talk about savings and investments a little bit. Important things. We're going to talk a little bit about goal setting, how to save, some risks that might be involved with all of those things. Of course, we're talking about something that's a little bit more than what we've talked about in the past. We've covered some psychology, we've covered a little bit about budgeting, a little bit about debt, but now it's important to look at some savings and investments. So
Definitely, because you want to get your money working for you, not just have it sitting away underneath your mattress.
exactly. And we're going to talk why that's the case in a moment. But the first thing we usually talk about when we're talking to people about saving and investing is setting some goals. So
Not just any goals.
Yeah, obviously they should be goals that motivate you.
SMART goals, that's called. Specific goals that you can actually know what you're going to be working on. Like, I want to be healthier. That's not specific enough. Maybe I want to lose weight or gain weight or gain muscle. Things like that. Eat healthier. Have more energy. Different things like that. Something that is specific that you can
What
actually
would be some
understand.
examples that are savings related?
Savings would be that you want to save for something specifically, like replacing your fridge, getting a vehicle that we've been seeing our kids working on right now, trying to save enough money for a specific amount for a vehicle. And they probably have their dream vehicle, but knowing that will take too long to get there.
They all do. They all have a dream car.
Yes, they do.
It's a pipe dream right
Something
now.
a little sporty. But
Yeah.
as well, there's other things to consider that it's measurable. So a specific amount, maybe they're going to save $10,000 for a vehicle, and that it's attainable. Is that something that they can actually do? If they're working at a newspaper route and earning $30 to $50 a week, well, it's going to take them too many years to get there. So they wouldn't be very excited about that one. And that it's realistic, or other times we've heard it
Relevant.
Yes.
The L seems to, or the R seems to flip around, but interchange it as needed.
Yes.
Relevant or what did you say?
Realistic.
Realistic. Okay.
Yeah. So are they going to go for that Camaro or Charger, or are they going to go for some nice little tuna can of a vehicle, we call them? And that it's time bound.
Yeah.
You don't want something to arbitrarily say, I'll work until I save $100,000. Well, that could take you a month. That'd be nice if it take you a month, or 10 years.
Yeah. So if
You
we
need to have a time frame.
give an example of a SMART goal for savings, it could be something like, I want to save $15,000 for a reliable vehicle that can get me from A to B by December 31st. That hit all of them? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember a goal we decided on early on in our marriage. We said we wanted to be debt-free by the end of, I think it was 2010. This is where the magic comes in about being very specific.
Yeah.
Because we decided that
We
we
were.
wanted to invest in the business and make it grow faster.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to have some liquid income to work with more. And we were debt-free. We sold the house.
We're also house free.
Exactly.
Homeless. Not homeless.
No, we had a place, but still, we figured maybe we should be a little bit more specific with our goals.
Exactly.
We still have what it is that we really want. So.
Exactly. So when you're setting a goal, a SMART goal obviously is a good thing. I'm sure most of our listeners have heard about SMART goals before. Write them down because it's only an idea until you write it down. It's a goal once you write it down. And then you got to make an action plan to do this thing and stick with your plan.
The easiest way to make that action plan, though, is to use your budget. Something like Calendar Budget allows you to track what you're doing with your money so you can see what is affecting each purchase you make. how it affects your later income and the balances in your accounts. And that way you can actually plan for those goals. And you can track how you're doing with those goals as well.
Yeah, so these goals come in different flavors. So they should all have these smart properties to them. But there's short-term goals, long-term goals, and then maybe some mid-term goals. So they'll have different meanings, different flavors, but basically a short-term goal is something that's short-term. So what does that mean? Usually like a year out, right?
That's a good time frame.
Yeah, so this is going to be something small like a family vacation or a fridge or a computer, something that's not going to break your bank and it's easy to attain, quote unquote easy to obtain.
Yes.
Midterm goals, if you're going to think about those, would be more like 2 to 5 years. And those will be a little bit larger purchases. Maybe that's a car, maybe it's a down payment on a house, could be something like that. It takes a little bit longer to save. And then your longer term goals be like 5+ years.
Yeah.
This is like retirement you're thinking about here. Maybe if you're parents, it would be like a kid's education, could be a wedding for your kids, or maybe you're helping them with a home purchase, or maybe you're planning to leave an inheritance of some kind. We'll probably talk about that in another podcast entirely, but we have some opinions about that. But the long-term goals and the short-term goals are basically how we suggest to kind of split the goals apart. Midterm goals, we usually just kind of lump them into short-term and long-term.
Yeah.
So we'll basically use that as we move forward in the conversation here.
But we tend to have specific savings accounts broken up into those areas so that we can keep track of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You don't want to like mingle your money that you're saving with your kind of regular spending money, your operations money. If it was a business, we would count it like that. But your petty cash, as it were, where you're like paying for your groceries and whatever else. We tend to have a separate account entirely for savings. Once money goes in there, then it is considered sacred and it doesn't get touched unless the goal for the saving has been reached, or if it's emergency savings, when an emergency happens. Yeah, and emergency savings should be a short-term goal for sure.
Yep.
Make sure your emergency savings reaches the threshold that you've set for that, whatever, $5,000 or whatever you've set for that. And then you can have other savings accounts as well. And there's accounts you can get, savings accounts that don't cost anything, so like no fee accounts. Those are perfect for savings because there's nothing like monthly account fees to hit your savings goals. And like, what is this all about? Come on, bank, really?
And it's a great idea then to have that emergency savings again so that you can give that buffer to ensure you reach those other goals.
Yeah.
That the emergencies don't bite into that savings.
Exactly. So once you set some of these goals, short-term, long-term, maybe mid-term goals, you're probably not going to be able to obtain or attain all of them. Goals by their nature are things that you want, not need. If you need it, then, sure, maybe that can be a goal, but that needs to be like fixed for sure. Most of your goals are going to be things that you're planning, that you maybe want in the future, and so you need to prioritize these, because if you're like every other person I've ever met, your wants far exceed your ability to obtain said wants.
Yes.
So prioritizing these goals will allow you to decide, okay, where do I want to put my focus? Where do I want to, this mysterious extra money that I have that I'm going to save, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Where do I put this towards? Because if you just put it into a savings account and it's just growing an account, sure, that's great and commendable, but you're going to have less gumption or energy towards that goal, as it were, if it doesn't have an idea backing it, like I'm saving for a vacation for the family.
Yeah.
If I'm just putting money into this account and it doesn't have a purpose, like a planned purpose, then you'll be more likely when you get extra money to just spend it on a night out at the restaurant. So yeah, I would say prioritize things. And, this is an exercise you're not going to do by yourself. You should prioritize with your spouse,
Definitely.
with your family. And, if you get the kids together, they'll be more likely to be on board with it. If they understand, like maybe they'll be more likely to say, hey, we don't need that dinner out at a restaurant every week if we're going to go on a vacation in the summer.
Exactly.
Because it focuses their energy as well onto this thing that you're going to do.
And even more to consider, though, is don't forget those long-term goals, because the short term of getting onto the family vacation, those are important. But you could end up going on a number of family vacations and then forget the long term that, oh, wait, at some point I need to retire. At some point there's going to need to be a further education for either myself or my kids. Whatever it's going to be, you need to consider those to make sure the important things aren't forgotten, the needful things.
Yeah, that's actually really important. You don't want to neglect your long-term goals just because you have something that you can see a little closer to the finish line.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the rest of what we're going to be discussing today is pretty general. We're not financial experts, and we don't know our listeners' exact financial situation.
Yeah.
So, you really need to talk to a financial advisor who can look at your exact situation, look at your savings, your goals, and where you are in life, and can give you specific advice for your situation. So we're going to just kind of be giving general topical information.
Agreed.
So when it comes to saving, if you're using short term, you mentioned at the beginning to not use your mattress. Most youth will be listening to this going, mattress? What the heck are they talking about?
People used to do that.
Yeah, they would stuff their money into their mattress to save it. I don't know why that's the case, but
Out of sight.
out of sight, out of mind, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. These days, it would be like putting it in a lockbox at home, a safe, or just a hiding place at home. So why not use a mattress? Why not use a hiding place at home?
Or even just in your checking account, because neither of them earn interest. And you need to get interest working in your favor.
Yeah. Before we get to interest, I would say another important reason for not just saving like a wad of cash at home is it's not secure. Mm-hmm. Like your home can be broken into. You probably have people coming into your home from time to time, friends of your of your family and so forth. If something goes missing, there's no recourse for that. Mm-hmm. It's gone. It's
no
just
insurance
gone.
On it. Yeah.
Well, there's house insurance. Yeah, but if you get good luck claiming that, is what I'm saying. If somebody breaks in and takes money, you can't just say, I had $500,000 in cash in my room. Yeah, good luck.
Well, what kind of proof do you have of that?
Yeah, exactly. You have to have a way to prove this, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's unlikely to happen, what I'd say. So putting it into something like a savings account or a checking account, that secures it in a couple of ways. One, nobody's going to rob the bank.
Per se.
Sometimes the bank does get robbed. We see it in movies all the time. But
yours money's secure.
The money is guaranteed if it's insured. Like we're in Canada, all the banks in Canada are secured and insured. So there's this thing you can look at in the window of the bank or whatever called FDIC in the United States, CDIC in Canada. It's Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which means this money is insured.
Yeah.
If it ever gets stolen, if the bank is an idiot and stores the cash there and then they have a fire and your money literally burns, it's not gone, right? It would be insured and it would still be yours. If it gets robbed, it's insured by the government, by the way. So the government backs these institutions.
Right.
They're not always the most responsible with it, but it's insured nonetheless. So that's an important thing to look for. If you do use a savings account, though, or a checking account, you're going to notice that the interest rate that you mentioned earlier, mm-hmm. high or low in a checking account?
Checking account, none. Savings account, low interest.
Yeah. It depends what bank you're with.
Yeah.
Sometimes checking accounts do have an interest rate on them, but usually they don't. And even a savings account, even if it's a high interest savings account, that just means it's high compared to normal savings accounts. It's still pretty low.
Yeah.
Like you'll be lucky to get like 2.5%, maybe 3% under special circumstances if you maintain a minimum balance and don't withdraw the money. So yeah, you got to be careful. Look for like no fee accounts that we mentioned earlier. Look for the restrictions around, do you have to have a minimum balance to get this higher interest rate, and what are, can you move the money in and out? Usually you can put money in there, but they don't want you to take money out, and if you do, it like wrecks the interest rate that you thought was high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so be careful about that.
That's intrigued me actually, how they have these different savings accounts. If you leave it in for 90 days, 180 days, or 5 years, whatever it is, that you earn a different interest rate with each of them. And I find it intriguing how that all works and how it all adds up. But
well, you know why they do that. The bank wants your money. Why do they want the money? Because they invested in the stock market.
they can make some income as well.
Through mutual funds and other things, not just the stock market.
Yeah.
But they invest your money, and the longer you keep it in the bank, the more they can invest it in third-party places. It's highly leveraged. There's some good movies that talk about how banks are so leveraged. You might not even know what that means, but it basically means they have this much money, but they're investing as if they have this much money, and it's crazy how it's even illegal to do that, but it's totally legal, and that's how it is. There's other things that you can use for short-term savings other than a savings account and a checking account. We're not going to go into them in much detail here, but there's like treasury bills, also known as T-bills, certificates of deposit known as CDs. There's money market funds, and there's a few other things. Basically, each of those have their pros and their cons, and I would suggest just consult a financial advisor to figure out what's the best thing for you, because there's a lot of factors involved around when can you take the money out and so forth. So all of these things, you just need to get educated about and make sure you understand. You don't need to become a financial professional, but that's why we have financial professionals out there to put the money in the best place. Don't leave it sitting in a 2% savings account.
And that's why we consulted with a financial advisor so we could have our money working best for us.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And to find the best vehicles that would work for our needs.
Yeah. For longer term investments, longer term savings, there are other investment vehicles to put your money into, and those depend a lot on a number of factors, like what's your income like, what is your age right now, when do you plan to retire, and what are your goals, and what's your risk level at, and all these things. Again, you need to consult a professional to get personalized recommendations, and it's important to do those things. Like long-term savings is super important because that's your retirement you're talking about, and unless you want to work up until the day you die, which is unrealistic because frailty comes with age as well, and you'll be less able to do work.
We're seeing that happen a little more often, I find, these days, though, that older people having to work because they didn't have enough retirement savings, so they needed to find something. And some people are just working because they need something to do with their time, so they don't just fall asleep all the time or whatever.
Yeah, so two different camps there, right? The need to work at a senior age and then wanting to work are different things.
Yeah.
If you want to work because you're just bored and you've filled your life doing something and you haven't found another outlet for your time, that's one thing. But if you don't want to work and you must because you have not enough savings, then that's a real struggle. I hate to see that, and it's the case with a lot of people. But if you're in your younger years, and when I say younger, even
20,
even
18.
40s, 50s, still young. you can still make a difference for your retirement. So don't, if you're like
Don't
in
count
your
yourself out.
if you're in your 50s, don't be like, oh, it's too late, and no, it's never too late. Yeah. Every investment though has risks. So there's a bunch of types of risk. What are the types of risk we need to worry about?
There are a few. There's capital risk, meaning that you will possibly lose the original investment that you had. And so if you invest $100,000, maybe the investment goes down and you can lose that initial investment or part of it.
You could lose all of it. It's unlikely, really unlikely, but you've seen it where, like, if you invest it in a stock market and that stock completely crashes,
Yes.
you could lose everything. So just be careful about that. We'll talk about some ways to avert that or like mitigate that risk.
Yeah, a balance.
Yeah.
So inflation risk.
Yeah.
That involves when inflation goes up, that the money that you invested, its buying power isn't as much as it used to be.
Yeah. We just saw a new film on Netflix called Get Smart with Money. It's actually really well done.
Yeah.
It was, it's like an hour and a bit long.
I like that.
Somebody in there explained it really well. So inflation is basically how the value of your money goes down over time because the prices of things continue to go up. That's just inflation. Because prices are rising over time, money that you sit on, if you just like put it in your mattress, $100 today will have less buying power in 5 years.
Yes.
Because prices keep going up, but your $100 is still $100. So the only way to get around that is to invest it. So you take this $100 and rather than just sitting it in a mattress or whatever, you invest it so that it can grow as well.
Something a little bit along the lines of inflation as well that decreases the buying power is maybe you decide to move somewhere more remotely, that like an island. Now there's costs to get the food and the things that you need over to the island that needs to be accommodated in the cost of selling the items. So that could increase costs as well, which I have family on vacation on an island now, and costs of living have gone up there for them. But
well, I think they've gone up proportionally there, but compared to where we live, they're
Probably about equal.
significantly less. I would think.
yeah, taxes really hit them there compared to here.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does depend where you live. If you live in a really urban area, like if you live in Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, and then you move to the middle of Wisconsin, guess what? Your living expenses are going to go down drastically, and suddenly the amount of money you have is way more buying power.
Yeah.
So it can work in
Things
both
to consider.
directions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Then there's a liquidation risk. So
Liquidity risk.
yes,
Yeah.
how easy is it for you to get rid of that item, whether it's a piece of art or real estate? So maybe you think, I'll invest in this real estate and I'll have somebody rent it out. Well, what if it takes a long time to get a renter? So you don't have that income that could help mitigate the costs. What if the renter puts damage on the house? You have to fix that. What if the market goes down and you don't get to sell the house for what you're expecting?
Yeah.
Or even less than what you purchased it for in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that happen recently where things went way up and now they're going down again.
Housing cost bubble. That was no good.
Yeah. So you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
And you may incur a loss or like lose it all, depending on what happens.
It's possible. So that liquidity, I'm sure most people know what this term means, but if you think of something, if you want to be able to use it, it needs to be able to move around, and it needs to be like, they use liquid as the state of matter. Mm-hmm. I can put a drop here, a drop there, a drop there. If it's all one frozen bundle, you can't split it apart. You can't really use it, so it's not liquid and it's just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And liquidity risk is when it's stuck in the investment because you can't get it out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Either you can't sell it, or maybe it's an investment vehicle like a GIC or something that's like stuck there for 2 years and you can't get it out because you agreed to leave it there for 2 years.
Yeah. Not anticipating that some sort of emergency was going to come up or finally decide to buy a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
So there's one other type of risk. It's just financial risk or credit risk, and this one is just, if you're. We talked earlier about that FDIC guarantee, like the insurance for your money. Not everything is insured. Like if you deposit your money with your friend,
Yeah.
right? Like by a loan, and he goes bankrupt, where's your money gone? It's gone. That's a financial risk.
Yes.
So look again for that FDIC, CDIC symbol to mitigate that kind of a risk.
Do
Yeah.
your research.
Yeah, exactly. And all of these risks that we're talking about, don't be scared off by these risks. These are like normal risks. We're just making you aware of them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't scare you away from investing your money, because the worst risk of all
Is doing nothing.
is doing nothing and not having any money saved whatsoever. So these risks are not so bad, and they're much better than stuffing your mattress if you're 100 years old. Okay.
But you can mitigate it.
By
We were talking about that before. You find a balance. You need to invest in different funds that will give you different interest rate, different securities.
yes, there's a word for this, magic word, diversification. So when you diversify, if you've seen this on movies or heard it used before, it just means that you're putting your money in different things. And it's not like the stock market where you're like, oh, I'll put some of my money in Apple and some of it in Facebook and some of it in my friend's company. That's still just the stock market. There's other vehicles like treasury bills and certificates of deposit and the stock market and the money market and the mutual funds market and
And your plain old savings account.
a plain old savings account. Yeah. We're going to talk, I think, next week about some different other savings vehicles that are available, like 401k, RSPs, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's lots of different ways, and diversifying is splitting your money into various of these so that if one or even two or several of these tank or don't perform very well, you're more balanced, because it's almost impossible that all of them would fail all simultaneously.
And we worked with our financial advisor to find the best balance for us so we could ensure we would be prepared to reach our financial goals.
For sure. So some of these vehicles are more risky than others. Like we just talked about all those risks, but some vehicles have much greater risk of having total failure. Maybe this could go to zero. You could have total financial risk on this, or total capital risk on this. But it also has the potential to have 20% return. So with that risk of fail comes a risk of gain as well. And so while you know the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Same with your money. You don't want to put everything in a highly risky thing. So you kind of balance it. And if you work with a financial advisor, they'll do a risk assessment with you, which helps you figure out how are you feeling about risk? 'Cause some people
are averse to it.
Some people really don't want to risk anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that also means they're not going to gain much, because they're going to be 4% interest on this whatever investment. It's going to be pretty low. We'll talk about again next week about why the rate of return is so important. But it is it's super important.
Early on, I think, in our marriage, it would have been easier to say, okay, we're high risk, no problem, because we have a lot of time for it to be able to bounce back if there's going to be an issue, or to gain more money to invest if the money's lost from the first investment.
For sure. So your risk tolerance may change significantly over the course of your life. As we're getting into our, almost hate to say it, more senior years.
We're not there yet.
I know I don't feel
still young.
I don't feel senior at all. But as you look at your potential retirement time, let's say you're going to retire in 5 years. You might be less likely to put your money in a highly risky investment because it has the potential to just disappear.
Yep.
Whereas if you're 20 years old, if it disappears, no big deal. You got lots of time to build it up still, right? But you could win. You could have a huge windfall. Anyway, a professional will work with you on that risk tolerance and an assessment with you to figure out what's the right balance so that you take advantage of some of the higher potential gains that are out there while still maintaining a base.
Yeah.
That's best for you.
So if I get some interest on my investments, take it, go spend it?
That's usually not how it works.
Not at all.
In-
Leave it in there.
In most cases, that's not even an option.
Yeah.
In fact, the only case I can think of where that's an option is your savings account.
Yeah.
In most of these other investment vehicles, the money is actually not in front of you. And it's not in an account you can look up. I mean, yes, you can look it up. But it's not like an account where you can transfer money out of in a simple way like you do with your bank accounts. Mm-hmm. It's in this plan, and you're contributing money to this plan regularly, hopefully regularly. Mm-hmm. And this money just kind of sits in this plan, and whatever gains it makes just automatically get reinvested in the plan. And so if you invest $1,000 and the plan makes $50, now you've got $1,050 invested in the plan, and then the next round of interest will apply to all of that. So again, we'll talk about that more next week, but that's like compound interest is your best friend.
One book that I read that made that very interesting and clear to me was The Richest Man in Babylon, where he was saying invest the money and then your money investments will have children, and take those children, invest them, and kind of thing like that. And it just kind of kept saying repeat it. And I found it very interesting to make it so concrete.
Simple terms, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
interesting.
neat how it outlined it. So. Yeah, great book.
Put your coins in there. What are they getting up to? I don't know, but a third appeared. The birds and the coins, is that the new message of the day?
Another discussion.
Yeah. So there's other investment options. What other investment options would make sense if you're not going to use like a bank account or some of these traditional financial vehicles?
Well, you have some non-traditional ones that would be things like art, where those things, when you first buy them, would be one lump sum, but you can get.
Yeah, they tend to appreciate over time.
Exactly, especially if you get like a Rembrandt or whatever.
Get the Mona Lisa.
Exactly.
Sell it to the Louvre.
No problem, right? Other things, you have antiques, and I love those shows where people don't know what they have and they bring them in and
Try to
find
get
out they're nothing, or
Try to
find
get the
out they're
most money.
amazing.
Yeah.
Coins and other collectibles. I know my mom collects thimbles. I don't know if they'll be of any real value, but
Maybe to a seamstress.
exactly.
No, I know they're collectibles.
Yeah. But you have to know that those things are of worth, that it is going to be of value. You don't always know what they're going to be.
And those kind of forms of, you called them non-traditional, they might be called traditional because those are like the original investments. But those forms of savings, they come with their own risks as well. Same as like financial vehicles.
Yeah.
They may get destroyed. Like a piece of art could get destroyed
Exactly.
in a fire. It could get stolen. Hopefully you have it insured. But
or if it's rental property, it could be destroyed for whatever happens.
Could.
Nature or the rental person.
Exactly. And just because you have this thing, if it's a piece of art, doesn't mean it's worth $500,000 because it's supply and demand. If nobody's willing to pay $500,000 for this, then it's not worth that much. It's worth whatever the potential buyer says.
And it could take time then if you do need to sell it.
Exactly.
It could take time. That's not an instant thing to have.
Yeah, exactly. So if we use the example of real estate, well, how would that look if we considered the risks of like a real estate investment property? So I'm not living in this property, but I'm using it as an investment. What does that look like?
So maybe you have a mortgage to pay on it because you've decided I will purchase this as an investment. You need the income right away in order to mitigate the costs that you're going to have with the mortgage. But if you can't find a renter right away, how are you supposed to pay the mortgage if you don't have that income? You also have damage and fire or anything that could happen that you need to take care of, and the time that it takes to control what's happening there, to make sure the client is taken care of, the tenant, that they have all their needs met for any repairs or upgrades that need to happen. maybe there's like asbestos in the house. Now you have to take care of that.
Oh my.
Hopefully you didn't purchase that house with that in it. But
Yeah. Yeah, there could be government regulations that change, which suddenly thrust the value of housing in general up or down.
yes.
Public sentiment could just change. Like we just came from out of a housing bubble and all the cost of housing was like just inflated for whatever reason. And then suddenly it went down. So
Yes.
the cost of a real estate investment can just go up and down. Although it tends to go up over time, in the short term,
I've seen for a few people as well where the rental owner was charging something when the person first moved in, and they were being nice to the tenant and they kept the cost down for whatever reason. Or during COVID, we've seen where they did like a price freeze
Freeze,
freeze on some of the costs. So then all of a sudden now COVID's gone or time has changed and this rental cost has not gone up. And really, if they had somebody new come in, they could probably be earning another $500 to $1,000 more a month.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that could be the challenge as well, where you could be earning more if the tenant changed, but you need to be respectful and to the tenant as well.
Yeah, so these kind of alternate investment vehicles, like you just been describing, all have pros and cons. So it just doesn't mean don't do them. It just means be aware.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to use those as an investment, then more power to you. Just make sure they're insured. Make
Yep.
sure that you have considered these risks.
Go into it with eyes wide open, do your research, find out if there's ways to mitigate those challenges that will come up. Maybe that we will review the contract in 2 years to reevaluate,
Yeah.
kind of thing like that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about long-term investing. So when I say long-term investing, yeah, we said 5+ years. I'm thinking
Long.
really long-term, like retirement long-term. Again, we're giving just general information here. There's no one size fits all answer. So it really depends on your specific situation. And it depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
Like some, person A and person B may have wildly different short and long-term goals. And one wants to live in the lap of luxury, and the other is happy to live a modest life. And that's going to mean vastly different retirement savings needs.
Yep.
So you got to work with a professional to figure this out. But a general rule of thumb, again, just general, is that in your retirement, you'll need about 70% of the income you were earning before you retired.
Right.
That's not always the case. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. It really depends on your individual circumstances, but that's just a general rule. Again, that's why it's important to consult with a pro who can help you figure these details out.
You may think that I don't intend on traveling, but maybe something else comes up, like you have bad health all of a sudden, that
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot more cost. So
Exactly.
you don't know what's going to happen.
And there's other factors like, what do you plan to do during retirement?
You sitting at home or are you traveling?
Exactly. Are you going to be like the retiree who gets a Ferrari, or are you going to be golfing? Those are wildly different goals. Maybe both. Also, are there other forms of support? Is there government support? Is there an employee pension plan in place? Do you want to leave an inheritance to your children? Are you maybe going to be receiving inheritances? Not that you should ever plan on that.
Yeah.
But crazy enough, the older you get, the more likely people are in your life to pass away. And so there's a chance, but again, never plan on that, obviously. The general advice in terms of how much to save is about 10%. Tithing rule, right?
10 to 20%.
Yeah, I mean, at least 10%.
Yeah.
Some people have gone as high as 50 or even more percent. That's very difficult to live like that because you're sacrificing an awful lot to live that much savings.
That would be the artificial environment of scarcity that we talked about a few episodes ago.
Yeah, for sure. That would be very difficult, 50%. But at a very minimum, 10%. And this if you don't have any goals, then just put it into an account. But set some goals there for what we talked about earlier. It'll motivate you more to do the savings if you have some actual goals for them. And just get started.
Exactly.
Get started today. Like, talk about what your plans are with your partner. Figure out some goals and set up a meeting with a financial advisor. If you don't have one, just call like the nearest financial institution. They'll be very happy to set up something with you.
Time is your friend when it comes to investments.
Yeah, it really is. And we're going to talk about that more next week. So, some recommendations for this week's topics. Set some goals, short-term, long-term goals. Prioritize your goals so that you know which ones are the most important, and make a plan for how you're going to invest, a la talk to a financial advisor, get things in motion.
And track that plan so you know that you're on goals.
Exactly.
On
Once
track
you
for
have those
everything.
things in place, then you can manage your day-to-day budget to achieve those.
Exactly.
So there you go. Happy budgeting.
Happy budgeting.
I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like. I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like.